Hey guys. Well, let's begin. Tonight we journey somewhere cold, dark, and honestly pretty smelly. Imagine standing in a field in 14th century England. The air is sharp and wet, the sun sets too early, and everything smells vaguely of smoke and mud. You're wearing the same itchy wool tunic for the 4th straight week, and your toes haven't been truly dry since Michaelmas. A few crows flap overhead, like they know something you don't. And the wind? It's whispering, in that eerie way wind does, like it's warning you, winter is here. To be honest, you probably won't survive this. So before the lights go out, click like and subscribe, but only if you're brave enough to return tomorrow night. Tell me where you are in the world, and what time you're listening. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan because silence makes this story worse, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You notice it first when your breath turns silver in the air. A puff of fog in front of your face like a dragon's sigh, only far less glamorous. There's no snow yet, just a persistent damp chill that slips through the walls and slides under your sleeves. The ground, once soft with harvest mud, crunches underfoot now, frozen into place. You're standing in what used to be a barley field. It's stripped bare, the stubble brittle and shivering under your worn boots. The final apples were picked last week. Anything still hanging is now bird-pecked or blackened by frost. You've already helped your neighbours pull the last carrots from the dirt, bent, frost-nipped things that smell more like old socks than food. The wheat's been stored, the turnips buried, and the sheep, poor woolly creatures, already look regretful about being born. You head toward your cottage, past the sluggish stream, now rimmed with ice. It's not fully frozen yet, but your gut tells you it will be by the week's end. Water fetching's about to become a nightmare, and it's not like your hut has plumbing, or windows really, just oiled parchment stuffed into wooden frames. Drafty doesn't begin to cover it. Your door creaks shut behind you and it smells a mix of mildew, ash, and the perpetual dampness that lives in every medieval cottage like an unwanted pet. Inside, your mother's already muttering about the rats getting bolder. One scurried over her foot this morning, and she's convinced it was the size of a small dog. You're not sure she's exaggerating. The animals get desperate in winter too. There's a small fire going in the hearth, but it's more smoke than heat. The wood is green and damp. It hisses like an angry snake as it burns. You rub your hands over it anyway, hoping for a little warmth before heading back outside. Because it's not over yet. The fields may be done, but there's winter prep to finish, and not enough daylight to waste. There's still that roof to check. Thatch has a way of slipping out just when you need it most. Last year, a snowdrift fell through and buried your sister's bed in soggy straw. Funny now, less funny then. So you climb the ladder, patched with bits of twine in sheer willpower, and hoist yourself up. The roof sways slightly under your weight, reminding you how old everything is. You shove tufts of straw into the gaps, your fingers numb even through your mittens, if you can call stitched-up wool scraps mittens. Your teeth chatter with every gust. Below, the world looks bleak. The sky is a pale grey smear, like someone forgot to paint it properly. Smoke curls lazily from distant cottages, barely visible through the haze. You can smell it. You hear your name. Supper's ready. You climb down stiffly and duck back inside. On the table, really just a board balanced on 2 barrels, is a bowl of pottage. Thickish, brownish, and mostly turnips. Again, there's a lonely scrap of salted meat in it. Someone's birthday, maybe. Historians still argue whether medieval peasants truly faced annual starvation, or if famine was an exception, not the rule. But tonight, you feel every empty inch of your stomach. You eat slowly, trying to trick yourself into fullness. There's talk around the village that this winter might be worse. The old man who remembers the hard freeze of 98 says the birds flew early this year, and the bees stopped buzzing before Michaelmas. That can't be good. Of course, he also said he saw a frog with 2 heads, so maybe take it with a grain of salt. If you had any salt left. After supper, you help wedge planks against the door. Not for robbles. There's nothing worth stealing, but to keep the wind out. Or wolves. One was spotted near the edge of the woods last week, gaunt and staring like it knew your name. You lie down on the straw pallet, scratchy wool pulled up to your chin. The fire pops softly. A chicken clucks in her sleep from the corner. You share the room with animals. It's warmer that way. Also, you're not risking leaving the only milk goat out in the cold. Above you, frost flowers begin to bloom on the wooden beams. Ice patterns. Delicate, beautiful, completely unwelcome. You close your eyes and try not to think about February. February's when everything goes truly sideways. You drift, slightly. Not asleep, not awake. Somewhere in that strange winter limbo where you're cold but too tired to care. Where dreams and waking blur like ink in water. It's only November. And the frost is just beginning. You wake before dawn, not because you're eager, who would be, but because the cold has crept under your blanket and curled itself around your spine like a particularly rude cat. Your breath puffs out in little clouds, and for a moment you pretend you're a dragon. A very tired, very cold dragon who desperately needs to pee. You shuffle out from the shared bed, stepping carefully around your snoring siblings and the clucking hen tucked into a basket near the hearth. The floor feels like walking on knives, not metaphorical ones, actual icy stabs of regret and poor insulation. Your shoes, if we can call them that, are stiff with cold and possibly mouse-chewed. You shove your feet in anyway, muttering under your breath. Now, clothing. What you wear in winter isn't really about fashion, it's more about volume. You pull on another tunic, this one slightly less itchy than the one beneath, and wrap a third one around your shoulders like a makeshift cloak. Someone's old sack, patched and smelling faintly of onions, becomes your outermost layer. It's burlap. It doesn't do much. Linen? That's for the rich. Fur? Ha! You've seen fur on the Lord's hunting dogs, not on peasants like you. So you make do with wool, even though it holds onto every damp whisper in the air. And yes, it itches like betrayal. Historians agree that most peasants had maybe 2 full sets of clothes, one for work, one for church, if you were lucky. Wearing every piece you own is less of a survival tip and more of a lifestyle. Outside, the air hits like a slap. You pull your hood low over your brow and tie it under your chin with a bit of string. Scarves? Mittens? Those are luxuries. What you've got is scraps. The kind your grandmother stitched together when she still had eyesight, bless her soul. You trudge to the animal shed. It's barely more than a lean-to, leaning a bit more each year. Your breath fogs the air like the steam from a sad stew. Inside, the goat eyes you suspiciously, as if you're going to milk her dignity away. She's not wrong. You kneel, muttering apologies, and go about your business. Her warmth is the nicest thing you'll feel today. Back inside, your mother's darning socks by firelight, fingers moving fast despite the chill. Her hands are cracked and red. Yours probably look the same. That's just winter life. You trade comfort for survival. You eat a heel of bread, stale enough to fight back, and sip something pretending to be ale, but tasting mostly of mushrooms. It's barely dawn, and you're already daydreaming about summer. Later, you join your father in chopping wood. The axe is blunt, your muscles stiff, and each swing sends a jolt up your arm. There's a rhythm to it, though. Swing, crack, curse, repeat. The goal isn't just warmth, it's the illusion of control. As long as the pile grows, you feel like maybe, just maybe, winter won't win. Of course, the kindling's damp. You can dry it by the hearth, but that takes days. So the fire smokes, and the smoke stings your eyes, but again, beats freezing. Fires were central to peasant survival, but here's the thing. Chimneys weren't common yet. So smoke just hangs in the room, seeping into your skin, your lungs, your soul. You carry that smell with you everywhere. It's a cologne called Desperation by January. Some folks try clever tricks. One woman down the lane lined her boots with straw. It works, until it doesn't. Another wears a pigskin cap on her head, oiled to block wind, looks ridiculous, works brilliantly. You take notes. Historians still argue whether peasants ever had access to proper outerwear, like cloaks with fur linings, or even waxed coverings. Some say surplus from the wealthy occasionally trickled down, Others say that's just wishful thinking on behalf of cold reenactors. Either way, your reality is layers, laces, and a permanent low-level itch that becomes your personality by February. Your neighbours get creative. One boy stitched old rags into a sort of neck warmer he calls the neck tube. It looks like someone strangled a sock, but he swears by it. You'd mock him, but you're the one with burlap sleeves tied around your legs like sad medieval leg warmers. So, you nod in respect. Occasionally the Lord's steward passes by, checking to see who's cutting from the wrong woods. Because yes, even the trees are owned by someone else. You can gather deadfall, but chop from the wrong trunk, and suddenly you're stealing royal property. He once fined a man for taking moss. Still, you try not to complain out loud. Complaining burns energy, and energy is food. Sort of. You tell yourself that. You do what you must to stay warm. You sing work songs, stamp your feet, and tuck your hands into your armpits when no one's looking. And when all else fails, you laugh. Because really, what else is there? You and your brother once turned icicles into swords and had a jousting match in the mud. He chipped a tooth. Worth it. Tonight, you sleep in the same layers you wore all day. Removing clothes means risking body heat, and that's not a gamble anyone's willing to make. You lie down, feeling more like a bundled turnip than a person. The wool scratches, the wind wails, but you're not shivering quite as much. And for now, that's a win. The stew is watery again. You stare into your bowl and try not to let your face betray you. It's got cabbage, definitely cabbage, and something that might once have been leek, or might be something someone found near the stream. Hard to say. There's a faint tang of salt, which means someone probably dropped in a sliver of pork fat. Not actual pork, of course. That's been gone since All Saints' Day. But the memory of pork? Strong contender. You scoop it up with a chunk of coarse bread so dense it could injure someone. There's no butter, no cheese, not in winter. You chew, slowly. It's warm. That's its only job. Soup, pottage, broth. It's all variations of the same idea. Hot water with ambitions. The medieval peasant's diet was, frankly, a seasonal experiment in how many ways you could boil something and still call it food. Right now, it's root vegetables that taste like earth and sigh when you stab them. Turnips, cabbage, onions, more turnips, maybe a dried pea or two. If you're lucky. Historians agree that the peasant diet was carbohydrate-heavy and nutrient-light, especially in winter. Protein was a festival event. You'd get more variety if you accidentally swallowed a bug. Your cousin swears someone in the village caught a rabbit last week. But he also thinks the moon is a wheel of cheese, so, grain of salt, if you had any. You sip again. It's not bad, just not much. It slides down your throat, warm and almost comforting, until you remember it's likely the same stew you had 3 nights ago, just topped up with more water and a newer onion. That's how leftovers worked, perpetual stew. A cauldron never fully emptied, just added to, like a medieval infinity pool of mild disappointment. But it keeps you alive, that's what matters. You tell yourself that a lot. Across the room your sister is grinding oats into something like flour, not for fancy baking, just to thicken tomorrow's stew. A thimbleful of oats makes it feel less like broth and more like survival with a spoon. And let's talk about the spoon. Yours is wooden, smoothed over years of licking and scraping, notched on the side, from that one time you tried to whittle it into a fish. You're not proud. Still, everyone has their own spoon, except the baby. She just uses her hands and an alarming amount of enthusiasm. Once in a while, someone roasts chestnuts. Not many grow nearby, but if you're clever and not above a bit of sneaking, you might get a handful. Roasted over the fire, they taste almost sweet. Almost. Fringe theory time. Some scholars believe peasants may have made acorn flour during lean winters, washing and drying the nuts to make a bitter, edible meal. Others say that's just speculation based on famine records and desperate logic. Either way, you tried one once. It was like eating a dusty regret. Foraging doesn't help much in winter. Mushrooms are long gone. Berries? not unless you enjoy chewing frozen disappointment. You might dig up wild roots if the ground isn't frozen solid, but mostly you rely on stores, or neighbours, or dumb luck. You recall last winter when old Martin made a beef pie and everyone asked where he got the meat. He just winked. You all ate it anyway. Hunger has a way of lowering your standards and your questions. Tonight, you sneak a bit of stale cheese from the cupboard. It's hard as rock and smells like a wet boot, but it melts a little near the fire, softening into something almost edible. You pretend it's a feast. You offer a bite to your brother, and he gasps like you've handed him gold. Which, in fairness, would be less useful right now than that tiny wedge of dairy. The thing is, no one complains much. Everyone's just used to it. Hunger hums quietly in the background, a constant companion. It's not always dramatic. Sometimes it's just the absence of satisfaction, a hollow space under your ribs that you learn to ignore. Occasionally someone hosts a feast day, a birthday, a saint's day, a wedding if anyone's brave enough. And suddenly there's more food. Maybe a roast chicken, maybe actual bread with yeast. You remember the last one. Dancing, laughter, an apple pie so small it was cut into slivers so thin you could read through them. Historians still argue whether communal food sharing was a cultural norm or more of a survival necessity. But from your view on the straw mattress tonight, it's both. When someone has extra, they share, because eventually they'll need the same from you. Hunger builds communities, awkward, smelly, half-starved ones, but communities nonetheless. Tonight's dinner finishes quickly. You scrape your bowl clean with the crust and then lick your fingers. Nothing goes to waste, not even dignity. You'd lick the bowl too, but your mother's watching. Someone's stomach growls. You all pretend not to notice. Later, before bed, your uncle stops by. He brings a scrap of dried apple from last autumn's harvest. Sweet, chewy, and so rare it feels like a miracle. You split it 5 ways, like monks with a relic. 1 bite each. You swear yours tastes like sunshine. The wind howls outside. You feel it in your bones, even inside this smoke-drenched hut. But your belly is, if not full, then at least not gnawing at itself. That's the bar for winter. Not starving, not freezing. Just not. The fire sputters out sometime before dawn. You know this not because you saw it happen, but because your nose is so cold it might detach itself out of protest. You wrap your threadbare cloak tighter and crack open the door just a little, just enough to let in a wave of air so cruel, so sharp it feels personal. You need more wood. Of course you do. You mumble a few choice words under your breath, ones that wouldn't make it past the church door, and grab your basket. It's barely light outside, but the sun doesn't care about your schedule anymore. In winter it shows up late and leaves early, like a lazy landlord. You step out, boots crunching on frost-slicked earth, and head toward the edge of the forest, where the trees stand like suspicious neighbours, tall, silent, slightly judging. Here's the thing about gathering firewood. It sounds easy in theory, just pick up sticks, right? Except you're not allowed to cut down anything live. That's the Lord's forest. You take a branch and suddenly you owe 2 hens and a month of labour. So you scan the forest floor like a raccoon on a budget, hoping for fallen limbs, dry bark, maybe even a pine cone if you're feeling lucky. You find a branch that's damp but not soaked, and hack at it with your hatchet. The blade's dull, your hands ache, and you can't feel your ears anymore. Gathering kindling in the dead of winter is an exercise in both patience and hypothermia. The wood is heavier, colder, and usually either too wet to burn or so dry it crumbles into useless splinters. Still, you fill the basket slowly, watching the trees, listening for wolves. Yes, wolves. They've been bold this year. A child in the next village swore he saw glowing eyes in the mist, and now everyone's afraid to walk alone. You haven't seen one yet. But the howling at night doesn't sound like imagination. It sounds hungry. Back at the cottage, your father tries to revive the fire. He arranges the damp logs just so, blows gently into the embers, and adds some straw. Smoke curls up, tickling your throat and stinging your eyes. You cough once, then twice, and wave your hand through the grey haze. Eventually, a flame catches. It's weak, but real. And that's enough. Historians still argue whether medieval peasant homes had separate chimneys, or if most relied on open hearths and smoke holes in the roof. From your current position, sitting beneath a ceiling blackened with soot, you'd guess the latter. Chimneys cost money. You've never even seen one up close. In here, the smoke just floats around like a bored ghost, sticking to every surface, turning your lungs into smoked meat. You hang your cloak near the fire to dry. It gives off a suspicious smell. Might be mildew, might be the result of last week's goat accident. Either way, you ignore it. Warmth spreads slowly, first to your face, then your hands. Your feet? Lost cause. Once the fire's going, everything revolves around it. You cook over it, dry clothes near it, sit around it telling stories. It becomes the centre of gravity for your small world. Without it, the house is a cold box full of frozen sighs. And yet, it's never quite warm, not truly. The fire heats the air within a foot or two. Beyond that, the cold waits patiently. You learn to hover close, to twist slowly like bread on a spit so each side gets a turn. You even rotate in shifts if there are too many bodies. Fire equity is serious business. Your mother pulls out an old iron pot and tosses in what little kindling she can spare. Tonight, she's making candle tallow. You watch as chunks of hardened animal fat melt into a cloudy pool, releasing a smell that could kill appetite at 20 paces. She dips in bits of rag tied to string, your new candles. They won't last long, but they'll light the way to the chamber pot and back. Progress. There's a rumour in the village that the blacksmith's wife makes candles from wax and herbs. Fancy ones, that don't reek of roast pig. But she only trades them for eggs, and yours stopped laying 3 weeks ago. Freeloading chickens, typical. The fire pops suddenly, sending a spark onto your knee. You pat it out and scowl. Fires are dangerous, and necessary, like cousins. Sometimes people burn peat or dried dung when wood's scarce. You've tried both. Peat smells like sadness, dung smells worse, but it burns hot, and in winter, priorities shift. One boy even tried burning dried moss. It crackled impressively, and then exploded into ash like a magician's trick gone wrong. Fringe tidbit time. There are stories of peasants stealing heat by standing near the walls of the Lord's Hall, hoping some of the warmth seeped through the stones. Most were shooed away like dogs. One man allegedly wrapped himself in hot bread dough. It didn't end well, but points for creativity. Your brother tries to roast a bit of onion on a stick. It slides off into the coals. He mourns it for a full minute. By evening, the fire's glow turns the room into something almost cozy. Shadows dance on the walls, and your sister makes shadow animals with her hands. You pretend you're not impressed. Historians still debate whether shared fire spaces helped family bonds or just prevented murder. You think both are true. As the fire dims, you bank it carefully, burying embers under ash. It's the medieval version of saving your work. In the morning, if you're lucky, those embers will still be warm enough to coax into flame again. If not, you start from scratch. Again. You crawl into bed, the air around you colder than outside. But under the blankets, there's the faintest warmth. You cling to it like a secret. You fall asleep with the smell of smoke in your hair and the memory of fire behind your eyelids. Tomorrow you'll fetch more wood. And the next day. And the next. You wake up with someone's foot in your face. Not a metaphor, an actual ice-cold foot pressed against your cheek like a soggy brick. You grunt and shift, trying not to jostle the entire sleeping pile. The fire's out again. Of course it is. This is how you sleep in winter, like sardines in a barrel, only with worse ventilation and significantly more snoring. The whole family shares one straw mattress. You sleep toe to head, alternating like mismatched spoons, mostly to avoid someone breathing directly into your face all night. It sort of works. Sort of. Blankets? A few. Thin, itchy wool layers stitched from old tunics and worn-out cloaks. There's one with a suspicious stain no one talks about anymore. But mostly, you rely on body heat and proximity. It's not comfortable, it's not luxurious, but it's warm enough to keep your teeth from chattering the entire night. There's a kind of unspoken choreography to bedtime now. Everyone takes their spots in a practiced sequence. The baby goes in the middle. She's warm and harmless. Your oldest brother gets the edge. He flails in his sleep and once punched the wall during a dream about fighting a bear. And you, unfortunately, are near the drafty corner where the wool weeps moisture and your pillow, if you count a folded tunic as a pillow, smells like wood. And yet, there's a strange kind of comfort in it. A shared stillness, a hushed pile of people breathing slowly, wrapped in the same chill, trying to outlast the dark together. You whisper stupid jokes before drifting off. Someone farts. Someone giggles. Someone tells you to shut up. Historians still argue whether communal sleeping was more about space saving or warmth. Honestly, both. In a one-room house, with frozen air like a guest who refuses to leave, doubling up, tripling up on bends wasn't optional. It was survival. Above your head, the roof creaks. You hear something scurry along the rafters. Rat? Squirrel? Ghost with a limp? You're too tired to care. Eventually, you drift into that strange, dreamless sleep winter brings. Heavy, blank, like being packed in snow. You wake again before dawn, as someone shifts and elbows your ribs. You shuffle out of the tangle, trying not to wake the baby, because once she's up, it's over for everyone. You step outside to, well, relieve yourself. The chamber pot is frozen, delightful. So you tiptoe out behind the shed, your breath huffing in clouds, nose already numb. The frost is thick on everything. The fence posts, the water barrel, your eyebrows. The moon's still hanging low like it forgot to clock out. Your boots crunch on the ground. You wonder, just briefly, if your ancestors did this too, squatted under a dying moon in a freezing backyard, while praying they didn't step in anything left behind by the goat. Probably. They would have laughed at how soft you are now. Back inside, your sister is stirring. She pulls her cloak tighter and adds a handful of straw to the hearth. You help her. There's no talking, just the quiet routine of trying to coax life back into this cold box of a home. You stretch your arms, joints stiff, back sore. Sleeping in a pile is great for warmth, but murder on alignment. You once dreamed of a feather bed. Then you remembered that feathers are for pillows and noblemen's hats. By the time the fire's going again, barely, but enough, the rest of the family is waking up. Someone sneezes, someone groans, the baby starts crying, and it sounds like the whole world is unraveling. It's just another morning. You eat a crust of bread so hard it threatens your molars. Your brother pretends to break his tooth, holding his mouth and wailing dramatically. You whack him with a spoon. He deserves it. Still, mornings like this are better than the stormy ones. On storm nights, the wind howls so loud you can't hear each other breathe. Snow forces its way through the tiniest gaps in the doorframe. One time, it snowed inside the house. Just a little, but still. Some families have beds raised off the floor, wooden frames to stay above the draft. Yours is half raised, using salvaged planks and a hope that no rats chew through the legs. You once saw a neighbour sleeping on bare earth, wrapped in a fur cloak so matted it could have walked off by itself. Fringe fact: some peasants lined their beds with warm bricks or stones heated in the fire. You tried it once, forgot to wrap it in cloth, got a nice thigh burn as a souvenir. You help tidy the bedding, really just rearranging straw and flipping the blanket so the scratchiest side isn't touching your skin. Then it's chores. Again. Always. But in winter everything slows down. There's less to do, and yet everything takes longer. Washing up means cracking ice. Getting dressed takes strategy. And as for sleep, well, there's more of it. Because what else are you supposed to do in the dark? Sunlight barely lasts 8 hours, and candles are precious. After supper, there's singing sometimes, or quiet talk, or stories. Then, blankets, huddles, darkness. You fall asleep early, you wake early. The cold makes sure of that. Historians still debate how much sleep peasants actually got in winter. Some theories suggest segmented sleep, 2 phases with a quiet wakeful period in the middle. You don't know what it's called. You just know that sometimes around midnight you lie awake staring into the dark, listening to your family breathe. Sometimes you whisper to yourself. Sometimes you think about summer. Sometimes you cry, just a little. Quietly, so no one hears. But tonight, you're just tired. The pile is warm, the wind is still, and for now, the fire glows like a sleepy eye in the hearth. You curl up next to your sister. She kicks in her sleep. You smile. Winter wins most battles. But not tonight. Your stomach growls before the rooster crows. A long, drawn-out complaint that echoes in your gut like a ghost in an empty hall. It's been doing that a lot lately. Loud, persistent, slightly judgmental. You sit up slowly, pulling the blanket with you, because the room is a fridge with straw flooring. Across from you, your father's already lacing up his boots, more string than leather at this point. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't need to. Everyone's thinking the same thing. How long will the food last? You had cabbage pottage last night. You had cabbage pottage the night before that, and the night before that with slightly more water and a vague whisper of bacon from the bottom of the pot. Today, you're hoping, praying really, for something different. Maybe an egg, a bean, a hallucinated sausage, anything. The food stores are low, and it's only December. You've got sacks of turnips, 2 sad-looking leeks, a few onions shrivelling like old toes, and 1 single hunk of dried salted pork. It's the size of your palm and smells like an apology. It's meant to last until February, realistically, January if you ration hard and no one accidentally nibbles a slice in the night. You help your mother dig through the storage chest, unwrapping linen bags of shriveled vegetables. She sighs as she lifts one, then nods. Stew. Again. But this time, she says, she'll fry a bit of lard and add it to the pot. Just for flavour. That's the real enemy in winter. Not just hunger. Boredom. Not of life, but of the same food. Again. Again. Historians agree that most peasants subsisted primarily on grains and vegetables, especially in the cold season. But here's the kicker. What seems humble to modern folk was pure survival artistry. You make do with what's available. And what's available, frankly, isn't much. You remember the last big harvest feast. There was bread so fresh it steamed when you tore it open, butter so thick it stuck to the roof of your mouth, and meat, actual meat, mutton, dripping with fat. You had seconds, you had thirds, and now, 3 months later, you're chasing the ghost of that meal with a bowl of broth and a half-stale crust. Breakfast today is ale porridge. You'd think the words ale and porridge together might be festive. They are not. It's just grain boiled in weak beer, which gives it the taste of soggy toast and regret. Still, it's warm, and warm counts for a lot. Your younger brother licks his bowl clean. He's got the appetite of 5 men and the table manners of a goat. Your mother eyes him suspiciously. She's already starting to calculate how long the barley will last if he keeps growing like that. The animals aren't doing much better. The hens are barely laying, the goat's milk is thin and sour, and the pig, well, he was dinner 2 weeks ago. You still miss him. Not as a pet, as a potential breakfast. You've heard rumours, fringe tales whispered after dark, of people eating things they shouldn't. Bark, sawdust bread, even leather. Your uncle once bit a bootstrap on a dare. He said it tasted like sadness and fringe historical titbit. In extreme winters, some peasants reportedly ground up old bones to thicken stews, or made soup stones, boiling pebbles with herbs in hopes the minerals would do something. It's debated whether this was symbolic, practical, or just desperation layered in optimism. Today, after chores, you try your luck at fishing. The stream is half frozen, but not completely. You poke at it with a stick, then set up a trap. Really just a basket weighted with stones and baited with leftover cabbage. You're not hopeful. Even fish have better places to be right now. You check the traps from yesterday. Nothing. Again. The one time you caught a trout, your family acted like you'd summoned it through witchcraft. Your brother named it, your mother stewed it. The hunger creeps in slowly during the day. It starts as a dull ache behind your ribs. Then it gets sharper around midday, when your body starts to wonder if lunch was cancelled. It wasn't. It just doesn't exist. You gnaw on a piece of hard cheese. It's older than your youngest cousin and smells like burnt socks, but it holds you over. Sort of. By afternoon your hands are shaking a little. Could be the cold. Could be the fact that yesterday's dinner was half a bowl of broth and a chunk of carrot. Your cousin stops by with good news. His family's baking bread. He offers a slice. It's coarse and flat, baked with barley and maybe some oat flour. It tastes like heaven. You almost cry into it. You consider marrying it. You help your mother barter for more food. She trades spun wool and a pair of mended gloves for a basket of dried apples and some onions. Not a bad deal. You remember when she traded 3 eggs for a single radish. She still complains about it. Historians still argue whether medieval peasants faced regular starvation or simply endured cyclical lean times. The records are fuzzy. The bones show malnutrition. But the stories, they're all variations on one theme. Hungry, but not gone. Your father returns in the evening with a rabbit. A miracle. Or a miracle snare. Either way, he grins like a boy again. Your mother blesses herself, then starts gutting it before he even finishes bragging. Tonight, dinner is an actual stew. Meat in it, real meat. A few carrots, some onions, herbs from the wall shelf. It smells so good the baby claps. You all eat slowly, reverently. Like it's church, but with gravy. There's laughter. Actual laughter. You joke about the rabbit choosing your trap out of pity. Your sister does a terrible imitation of it dying. You laugh harder. The fire is warm tonight. Your belly is too. Not full, not bursting, but satisfied. That rare, rare feeling in winter. You go to bed thinking about rabbits. And bread. And whether tomorrow might bring another miracle. You scratch your shoulder, then your thigh, then the back of your neck. You try to ignore it, but by the time you reach for your blanket, your whole body is whispering, "Something is crawling on me." And not just metaphorically. Welcome to winter's lesser-known gift, the return of the bugs. You don't really know when they arrived. Maybe they never left. But sometime after the first frost, when the air turned cool and the fires became constant, the lice got bold. They thrive in heat, in layers of unwashed wool, in the warm creases of sleeping bodies mashed together like hay bales. You are, in their eyes, prime real estate. You sit up and check your sleeves. Nothing visible, but that means nothing. Lice are sneaky. Itchy. Persistent. Your mother once said, "If you're not scratching, you're probably dead." Comforting. Then there are the fleas. They live in the straw. No matter how often you change it, they come back. Tiny, hopping nightmares. Your sister once claimed she saw one wave at her. You didn't question it. You've seen them do worse. And let's not forget the mice. They arrive at night, mostly. Little scratch feet across the rafters, across the floor, sometimes across your pillow. You wake up to find one chewing the corner of your sleeve. You blink. It blinks. You both scream. But you don't blame them, not really. They're hungry too. The stores are dwindling, the root cellar smells weird, and they're just trying to survive winter the same as you. Doesn't mean you like sharing your supper with a whiskered potato thief, though. You start your morning by checking the walls, specifically the patch where the wattle's cracked. Mice keep squeezing through there. You stuff it with rags. Again. Your father says he'll fix it properly once the frost clears, which is medieval for maybe never. Historians still debate the scale of vermin problems in peasant homes. Some argue that animals like cats and weasels were common deterrents. Others believe pest control was mostly screaming and desperation. In your house, it's both. Your cat's useless. She sleeps more than your uncle, and has the work ethic of a decorative loaf of bread. Still, she keeps the rats away, mostly. There was that one bold rat last winter, the one with the missing ear and the limp. Your brother named him Gerald. You caught Gerald stealing a potato once. He stared you down and walked off with it like he paid rent. You dig into your hair with your fingers, parting sections trying to find the lice. You spot one, maybe two. You squish them. You hope. Your mother has a comb. Then there's the smell. The house has an aroma. A combination of damp straw, smoke, sweaty wool, dried meat, unwashed feet, and whatever the goat left behind this morning. You don't really notice it anymore, until someone visits. Then you become very aware, very fast. You remember the friar who visited last spring. He stepped into the cottage, sniffed once, and said, "Ah, the scent of honest labour," which is a polite way of saying, "Your house smells like sadness and sheep." Fringe titbit. Some medieval folk hung bundles of herbs and flowers from the ceiling to mask the odour. You tried that once. Dried lavender and thyme. It helped for a day. Then the mice ate them. Your uncle has a theory that if you smear goose fat on your skin, lice can't grip. He also says that he once spoke to a saint in a dream. So, take that advice carefully. Bathing isn't really a winter event. Not because you don't want to be clean, but because washing means cold water, cold air, and cold judgment from your own organs. So instead you clean with a cloth, dampened if you're lucky, rubbing your skin until you feel less crusty. It's not effective, but it's the best you can do without freezing off a toe. You consider washing your hair. You do not wash your hair. And yet, despite all this, despite the pests, the dirt, the smell, you adapt. You scratch. You laugh. You shove a mouse off your bed and go back to sleep. It becomes normal. Tonight, your mother finally combs your scalp. You sit on a stool by the fire while she parts your hair with a vinegar-soaked comb. It stings. You wince. She mutters a prayer and flicks a louse into the fire. You pretend it screams. Your sister gags in the corner. Your brother offers to help. You tell him no. Last time he combed your hair, you lost a patch the size of a coin. Historians still argue how peasants managed hygiene during long winters. Evidence suggests most did their best, but their best was often not enough. And honestly, clean is a sliding scale. You may not smell like a rose, but you don't smell worse than the dog. That's a win. Later, as you lie in bed, scratching absent-mindedly, you stare at the ceiling. You watch a spider cross the rafter. You think about asking it to evict the lice. A truce. A partnership. Anything. The baby stirs. The cat yawns. A mouse squeaks from under the cupboard. You pull your blanket tighter. You scratch your neck. You sleep anyway. You feel it start sometime around mid-morning. A dull pressure behind your eye. The kind that tells you today is not going to be pleasant. Your jaw aches when you bite into a crust of bread, and there's a sharp sting in your back molar. You poke your cheek with your tongue and flinch. Bad idea. Welcome to medieval dental care, where the leading strategy is, don't chew on that side. You don't have a dentist. There's no minty rinse, no numbing gel, no floss. There's you, a throbbing tooth and a century's worth of questionable folk remedies passed down from people who mostly died of things they couldn't pronounce. Your mother offers her go-to cure, clove-stuffed linen pressed to the gum. You try it, it burns, then it goes numb, then it burns again. You leave it in anyway because what else are you going to do? Wait for the tooth to rot its way out of your skull? Honestly, yes. Historians agree that dental care for peasants was mostly reactive. By the time you notice a problem, it's too late. Teeth fell out, gums bled. People lived with pain until the tooth either broke, dissolved, or got yanked out with pliers that also fixed wagon wheels. Some say folk healers used herbs like sage or mint. Others chewed willow bark, which sort of works. It's got salicin, a compound similar to aspirin. But mostly, you just suffered. You lean near the fire and press your fingers to your jaw, trying not to cry. Not from the pain, though it's bad, but from the helplessness, the knowing that there's nothing to be done. You have to work today. You have to eat today. You have to smile at your siblings and chop wood and fetch water, all with your mouth quietly screaming in the background. Later, your neighbour stops by. She's older, with a limp, and always smells faintly of vinegar and thyme. She claims to have a cure. You sit obediently while she ties a string around your wrist and mutters something in Latin. You don't know what it means, but you whisper, "Amen," just in case. Then she rubs a crushed garlic clove along your gum line and tells you to avoid eye contact with chickens for 3 days. You're not sure if it's healing or a prank, but you're in too much pain to argue. You rinse with cold ale because it's mildly antiseptic. Also because it's the only thing in the house that doesn't smell like smoke and goat. You consider swishing with the wine the priest gave you last spring. You remember you drank that the day it arrived. Never mind. By evening the pain has dulled slightly. Or you've dulled. Hard to tell. You try to eat supper? A bit of soft onion and barley mash. You chew on the left side only. It works for a while, until it doesn't. You feel a sudden jolt in your jaw, like a lightning strike made of bone and regret. You swear, quietly, inwardly. Not because your mother is watching, but because you know it won't help. Nothing will. Fringe fact. Some old remedies involved heating a nail and pressing it to the cheek, drawing out the evil. Others suggested tying a frog to your jaw. You're desperate, but not frog desperate. Yet. The pain steals your appetite. You leave half your food untouched. Your brother tries to sneak a bite. You swat his hand. He laughs. You don't. You lie down early, hoping sleep will smother the ache. It doesn't. The pain pulses with every heartbeat. You curl up, arms wrapped around your head, blanket over your face, trying to muffle the world. Historians still argue whether tooth infections were common causes of death. Some believe many peasant deaths labelled as fevers may have started with infected gums. Makes sense. Your mouth feels like a battlefield. Your sister asks if you're okay. You grunt. She brings you a scrap of linen dipped in warm salt water. You press it to your cheek. It helps. A little. Tonight, there's no singing, no stories. You're quiet. The fire crackles. A spark leaps onto the hearth. No one moves. Everyone's tired. Everyone's hungry. And you're hurting. You think about plucking the tooth yourself. You imagine gripping it with your fingers, yanking hard, screaming into a blanket. But you don't. Because if it breaks, you might make things worse. Instead, you lie still. You breathe. You count the minutes. You listen to your family sleep and try to match their rhythms. Your cheek throbs. Your ear rings. Your fingers twitch with the urge to dig the pain out. But eventually, sleep wins. It always does. Even against the tooth. The bells are ringing. Not loudly, they're far away, but steady and slow, like someone yawning in metal. You blink, confused for a moment. Your tooth still aches, but it's duller now, tucked somewhere behind the fog of early morning. Then you remember, it's Sunday. Church day. You sit up slowly. Your legs are stiff, your back sore, and your blanket has somehow twisted itself into a useless lump at your feet. You kick it off and reach for your boots, which are cold, damp, and still smell like goat. You pull them on anyway. The alternative is frostbite, and to be honest, you've seen what that looks like. The family moves like molasses, slow, sluggish, half asleep. You eat a bit of barley porridge, with more barley than porridge, then get to work layering up. You can't go to church looking like a complete disaster, just a partial one. Your mother combs your sister's hair near the fire, while muttering about the state of everyone's socks. She hands you a woolen hood, patched 3 times and lined with something that might have once been rabbit. You tie it under your chin and instantly feel 3% holier. Church is the one time everyone in the village gathers, not just to pray, but to warm up. The stone walls are cold, the benches are harder than logic, and the drafts come in from every direction. But once the building fills with bodies, it becomes, if not cozy, then at least survivable. You trudge up the muddy lane, boots squelching, wind slapping your cheeks. The sky is heavy today, swollen with the threat of snow. You can feel it in your joints, in the quiet. The world always hushes before a storm. Inside the church, candles flicker from high sconces, casting long shadows across the floor. The priest is already muttering Latin, his voice echoing off the cold stone like a ghost reading poetry. You slip onto a bench and breathe in the smells: wax, wood smoke, wet wool, and something vaguely holy. Historians agree that medieval churches were multi-purpose spaces. Sacred, yes, but also practical. Warmth, shelter, occasionally a free crust of bread from the almoner if you looked particularly pitiful. And you look incredibly pitiful today. You clasp your hands and try to focus, but your fingers are numb and your tooth has started tapping a slow rhythm again. You glance sideways at your neighbour's family. They look just as frozen as you. One kid is actually asleep against a pillar. You respect that. The priest is talking about St. Martin, whose feast day was last week. A man who gave his cloak to a beggar. The irony isn't lost on anyone. Cloaks are rare. Giving one away would be the medieval equivalent of handing someone your house keys and your dinner. There's talk of fasting, of charity, of winter as a test of the soul. You nod politely. You already feel like your soul has frostbite. Later, after Mass, people linger outside despite the cold. It's the only chance to socialize without being judged by cows. There's quiet conversation about the weather, about whose chickens are still laying, about the wolves. One woman claims she saw one yesterday, pacing along the tree line near her garden. Huge, silent, yellow-eyed. Her husband nods grimly. You shiver, not from cold this time. Someone hands out a few stale rolls from a cloth sack, charity bread. You take one, thank them, and immediately nibble the edge. It's dry, but soft enough to chew on the good side of your mouth. You consider it your Sunday miracle. Historians still argue whether churches offered consistent material aid to peasants or just spiritual comfort. The truth probably depends on the parish. Yours? It offers a little of both, and, at the very least, 20 minutes of semi-warmth and community. You walk home slowly, the roll warm in your pocket. Snow starts to fall, fat flakes that drift like feathers from a broken pillow. The wind picks up, curling under your hood and stinging your eyes. You lower your head and trudge. Back at the cottage, your father's already adding wood to the fire. The goat has knocked over the bucket. Your sister is chasing it with a broom. The baby is crying. Life resumes instantly. You sit near the hearth, unwrap your roll, and eat the rest slowly. You pretend it's fresh. You pretend you're not chewing around pain. You pretend the candle flickering beside you doesn't smell like fat and burnt hair. And for a moment, it works. You stretch your feet toward the fire. The warmth creeps in slowly like shy hope. Outside, the snow thickens. You hear it thudding softly against the roof, a slow rhythm like the world exhaling. You close your eyes. You survived another week. The wolves didn't come. The bread didn't run out. The church was cold, but not cruel. And somewhere deep in the folds of your cloak, you think, maybe your soul passed the test. The darkness comes early now. 1 minute you're stirring the pot over the hearth, and the next the room has vanished into shadows. The sun sets so fast in winter, you'd think it was trying to avoid you. By the time you squint toward the window, it's just a black square smeared with frost. You fumble for a candle stub. Not a fresh one, those are for feast days or emergencies, but a short, melted lump that's already burned halfway down the string. You pinch it upright in a lump of cold tallow and light it from the hearth. It flickers weakly, casting a circle of yellow no larger than a loaf of bread. That's your evening glow. That's all you get. You might think candles are simple, cheap things. In medieval winter, they're practically treasure. Making them takes effort, fat, cloth, thyme, and a stomach strong enough to endure the smell of slowly melting animal remains, which, yes, is as charming as it sounds. Today, your sister is in charge of candle duty. She's already got a pot of tallow on the hearth, melting into a waxy pool that looks like soup and smells like tragedy. You bring over a bundle of old rag strips, all twisted tight and tied at one end. You dip the first one slowly, carefully. The trick is not to rush. If you pull it out too fast, the tallow slides right off. If you leave it in too long, it catches fire. You've made both mistakes before. You still have the scar on your wrist from the fire one. You hold the strip above the pot for a second, watching the fat drip back in, then hang it from the rod. 1 down. 9 to go. Candle making is less about beauty and more about survival. These aren't decorative. They're your only source of light when the fire dies low and the wind howls like an angry ghost. Historians agree that most peasants relied on tallow candles, made from leftover fat and cloth, or rushes dipped in grease. Beeswax was a luxury, something you might see in church or the manor, but never in your own home. If your candle didn't smell like an animal's last regrets, it wasn't peasant-made. Once the dipping's done, you let them harden. You hope none of the mice sneak in and chew the strings off, again. They did that last week, and your brother nearly wept. The finished candles are squat, lumpy, and slightly off-colour. You're proud of them anyway. Later, your mother trims the wick of the one in the centre of the table. It's mostly for light, but also for comfort. Darkness does strange things in winter. It makes the walls creak louder. It makes the wind sound like voices. It makes you imagine footsteps outside, even when you know no one's coming. Tonight, your father tells a story to keep the dark at bay. Something about a lost traveller, a wandering monk, and a ghostly stag that led him to safety. You've heard it before. You pretend you haven't. Your sister interrupts halfway through to relight the candle. The flame's gone dim. She trims the wick with her fingernail and gives it a little blow. It flares to life again. Everyone sighs quietly. A room without a candle in winter is a black pit. A candle makes it a home. Fringe tidbit: some villagers used dried rushes dipped in bacon fat as a form of poor man's candle. They'd line them up in holders and light them one at a time, each one lasting about 15 minutes. Your neighbour swears by them. You tried once. The smell haunted your dreams. You keep your candle on the hearthstone at night, not too close to the straw bed. No one wants to wake up on fire, but near enough that its light pools across the room. You fall asleep watching the wick tremble. It's strangely soothing, like a heartbeat made of fire. Historians still argue whether peasants used oil lamps, but for most it was tallow or nothing. And once the candles were gone, it was just the fire, the moonlight, and whatever your imagination cooked up in the shadows. You've seen things in the dark. Not ghosts, though your sister insists she saw one last winter, a pale figure at the window. You think it was just a smudge, but maybe. You've seen shapes move. You've heard voices whisper your name. You've felt the weight of something not there pressing on your chest. Then the candle flares, and the dark scatters, and you breathe again. Tonight, after the story ends, you all sit in silence for a while. The candle's almost done, wax pooling around its base like melted gold. You hate snuffing it out, but it has to last. You lean in, cup your hand around it, and blow gently. Darkness swallows the room in one bite. You lie down in the straw, listening to the wind in the rafters, to the baby breathing, to the faint crackle of coals in the hearth. You reach out, touch the candle stub, still warm from the flame, and slide it under your blanket, not because it's useful now, but because it feels like a piece of light you can keep. Someone knocks at the door. Not a real knock, more of a soft thump, like a mittened hand brushing against the wood. You freeze mid-step. So does your father. Your sister puts down the wooden spoon. The fire crackles. The silence grows teeth. No one just visits after dark in winter. Your father rises slowly, grabs the long stick by the hearth, his just-in-case stick, and inches toward the door. You and your brother exchange glances. You try to act calm, but your heart is bouncing around your ribs like a goat on a frozen roof. Another knock, still soft, still. Your father unlatches the door, pulls it open just a crack, and exhales. It's only old Brenna from 2 houses down, wrapped in what looks like 17 scarves and carrying a bundle under her arm. She's grinning like she knows she gave you all a minor heart attack. She steps inside, trailing cold and a smell of snow and onions. "Thought you'd like to hear the story," she says, plopping the bundle on the table. It's not food. It's not anything useful, really. Just a little carved wooden figure. Some kind of saint. Or maybe a dog with ideas. You all gather around as she begins. It's a winter tradition, these nighttime tales. Not every night. Wood and candles are too precious. But some nights, when the air outside bites a little harder, when the wind moans like it's trying to get in, when your belly's just empty enough to make your brain extra imaginative. Tonight, Brenna's story is about a lost traveller. Not the same one from your father's usual tale. This one wanders into a blizzard and finds an abandoned chapel in the woods. Inside, a single candle burns, and a voice whispers from the shadows. Spoiler, it's not friendly. The baby claps. Your sister gasps at all the right parts. Your brother tries not to look scared, but grips the table like it might run away. You love these stories. You really do. Not just because they pass the time, but because they make the cold seem manageable. If a ghost didn't get the lost traveller, maybe frost won't get you. Historians still debate how much oral storytelling filled the peasant evenings versus quiet prayer or sheer exhausted silence. But one thing's clear, people told stories to explain what they couldn't fix. Like why the wind sometimes sounds like a woman weeping, or why, once a year, the well water turns cloudy for no reason. You remember the tale of the midnight blacksmith, the one who forges tools for ghosts in exchange for protection. Or the woman in the woods who can stop frost with her singing voice if you offer her your best mitten. Brenna finishes her story with a wink. And they say the candle still burns, waiting for the next traveller. Everyone claps. Your mother smiles for the first time all day. You offer Brenna a slice of bread as thank you. Your last slice of the good loaf. She refuses, then accepts. Because of course she does. She leaves just as the wind picks up. You bolt the door behind her and listen as the night reclaims the outside world. Later, as you lie on your straw bed, you think about that chapel, the flickering candle, the voice in the shadows. You wonder if it's a true story. Probably not. But then again, fringe fact, in some regions people believed long winter nights thinned the veil between worlds. Spirits, saints, the souls of the unbaptized, wandering through villages, slipping under doors, whispering through chimney smoke. You're not superstitious, but when the fire dims and the wind sighs against the shutters, you do find yourself reaching for the nearest hand. Your brother mumbles in his sleep, your sister shifts beside you, you pull the blanket higher, the edges tucked under your chin. Outside, the snow continues to fall, quietly, steadily, like it's laying a soft white shroud over the world. You imagine the ghostly chapel, flickering in the woods. You imagine being the traveller, cold and lost. You imagine finding that one flame, burning against the dark. And somehow the room feels warmer. Your nose hairs freeze the moment you step outside. It's not a metaphor, it's not exaggeration. It's just winter doing what winter does best, reminding you, in the cruelest way possible, that you are a soft, fleshy creature who really shouldn't be living this far from the equator without central heating. The core this morning? Empty the chamber pot. You hold it at arm's length, lid balanced precariously, praying that you don't trip. Or slip. Or sneeze. You've seen what happens when someone drops a full one. No one speaks of that day anymore. The air is so sharp it could cut bread. Your breath puffs out in bursts, and even your eyelashes feel stiff. You hurry past the corner of the goat shed, where frost clings to the wood like tiny frozen barnacles, and head toward the edge of the garden. There's a little pit out back, a hole, a modest grave for all the things you'd rather not think about after dinner. You dump the contents of the pot with a hiss and a sigh, your nose wrinkling. You can't help it. You glance around. Every winter, someone claims they saw something near the waste pit. Glowing eyes, a pale shape. A thing hunched in the frost. Probably a tree. Maybe not. You toss a handful of snow over the mess, just in case the spirits appreciate modesty. Historians still debate whether chamber pots were emptied daily or whenever the smell started gaining sentience. Most agree that peasants kept things as clean as they could, but let's be real. There's only so much dignity you can maintain when you're carrying yesterday's stew out in a ceramic bowl. Back inside, your toes start to thaw, which is both a blessing and a betrayal. The burning sensation creeps in slow, like your feet are arguing with reality. You flex them. They crack like dry twigs. Your sister's already spinning thread in the corner, and your brother's sharpening the old knife on a stone. The baby is chewing on a spoon and humming tunelessly. The whole house smells faintly of ash, wool, and despair. You sit by the hearth and warm your hands. They're red and cracked, but at least they still move. The fire is low. You add a few twigs from the basket and hope they catch. Wood is getting scarce, and you're starting to eye the old stool like it might be next on the firewood list. Later you head outside again, this time to fetch water. The bucket's frozen to the post. You kick it, regret it, eventually pry it free. The well is stiff with frost around the rim, and the rope creaks like it's groaning under the weight of everyone's expectations. You lower the bucket slowly, hand over hand, each movement scraping your palms. When it hits the water, it echoes. You pull it back up, muscles screaming. Half the water spills over your boots. Now your boots are angry. Fringe tip. Some villagers store snow inside in barrels and let it melt by the fire instead of fetching well water each day. You tried that once. The snow came with a surprise, 1 dead beetle and half a twig. Delicious. You carry the bucket back inside, sloshing and slipping, then set it down by the door with a thud. Your mother gives you a nod, like you've returned from war. You feel like you have. The cold makes every task feel twice as long. Wringing out wet cloths, folding stiff tunics, chopping vegetables with a knife so dull it qualifies as a spoon. Your joints ache, your fingers refuse to close all the way. You drop things constantly now. You stop apologizing. Historians agree that peasants' daily chores didn't stop for weather. Winter simply added resistance, an invisible hand pushing back at every step. You feel it all the time, in your knees, in your lungs, in your mood. This afternoon a gust of wind blasts open the shutters. Snow swirls in before you can slam them shut. It lands on the hearth, melting instantly, hissing like a warning. You brace the window with a stick and mutter something rude about nature. She doesn't care. Your sister lights a candle, more for comfort than illumination. It casts dancing shadows across the floor. For a moment, you stare into it, letting your mind wander. Then she hands you a bucket. Time to clean the goat's pen. The goat is unimpressed with your arrival. She bleats like you've offended her ancestors. You shovel out the frozen dung with a flatboard and toss it onto the compost heap, really just a sad pile of frozen sadness by the fence. While you work, you try not to think about how often your life involves shoveling, or scraping, or hauling, or freezing. You focus on the rhythm. Scoop, toss, shiver, repeat. There's something oddly meditative about it. Or maybe your brain is slowly shutting down. Back inside, your mother adds a handful of oats to the pot. Dinner smells better than expected. You all crowd close, bowls in hand, waiting for your turn. You get yours, just enough to fill the bottom. You blow on it, savouring the steam. You try not to think about how few oats are left. Afterward, you help clean up. Not because you're feeling generous, but because standing near the fire is preferable to freezing on your straw mattress. You glance out the window. The snow is falling again, softer this time. Thick, silent flakes that coat the world in hush. The kind of snow that makes it feel like something is watching, or listening, You light a candle. You double-check the bolt on the door. You sleep with your boots close. Just in case. There's coughing in the dark. It starts with your little sister soft, like a hiccup, then louder, then constant. You lie still, eyes open, staring into the black above you as her breath catches again, sharp and wheezing. Your mother shushes her gently, rubbing her back, whispering prayers between coughs. You hear your brother stir, then your father sigh. The fire is almost out. The room is cold again. Not crisp cold like outside, but damp and close. The kind of chill that clings to your skin and makes your joints ache before sunrise. You reach for the blanket and pull it up to your chin. Your sister keeps coughing. Winter sickness. That's what they call it. No one ever says what kind of sickness, just that it comes when the frost settles in and the sun stops trying. Your mother blames the damp, the cold, the wind sneaking through the thatch. Your father blames the spoiled onions. The neighbour blames demons. Everyone's got a theory. No one's got a cure. You roll over and try to sleep, but the coughing keeps coming, like footsteps just behind the wall. You tell yourself it's nothing, just a cold. Everyone gets sick in winter. Everyone wakes up. Usually. By morning, your sister looks pale, eyes glassy. She sits by the fire wrapped in 2 blankets, sipping hot water with a sprig of mint floating in it. There's no honey. That ran out 2 weeks ago. There's no lemon. There never was. You help your mother grind dried herbs with the flat side of a spoon. Thyme, a little dried sage. You add them to the pot and stir, pretending they'll help. Pretending this isn't the same thing you made last time, and the time before that, for the cousin who stopped coughing only when he stopped breathing. Historians still argue about what illnesses truly plagued medieval winters. Pneumonia, influenza, cold exposure, malnutrition masking as fever. Most agree it was some combination of all those, plus a touch of mystery. You call it the deep chill. It comes from inside, and it leaves only if it feels like it. Your father visits the neighbour to ask for help. She's a healer, part her-witch, part midwife, part rumour. She arrives by midday, bundled in scarves, her fingers stained with berry dye and soil even in winter. She smells like dried rosemary and goats. She presses her hand to your sister's forehead, mutters something, and digs through a pouch. Out comes a root. A feather, something that looks suspiciously like a mouse tail. You don't ask. You just watch. She rubs something under your sister's nose. It stinks. She gives her a tincture in a wooden spoon. Your sister drinks it without complaining, which is somehow the scariest part. Then the healer nods once, drops a clove of garlic into the fire to warn off the spirits, and leaves. You sit with your sister all afternoon. Her cough quiets a little. She dozes on and off. Your brother offers her a stone he painted last summer. Your mother hums under her breath. No one talks much. Words are for later. Fringe fact. Some believed fevers were caused by an imbalance in humans. Too much black bile, not enough phlegm, or maybe vice versa. Others said it was punishment for sin, or the result of a passing witch's shadow. Either way, the treatment was usually the same. Herbs, warmth, prayer, and a terrifying amount of guesswork. That night, you don't sleep. Not really. You lie awake and listen to her breathing. In, out, sometimes in again, sometimes not. Every pause makes your heart lurch. You stare at the ceiling, tracing knots in the wood you've memorized over the years. One looks like a dog, one like a duck, one like a grave. You blink it away. The candle burns low beside the hearth. Your mother nods off in her chair, head bobbing forward. Your father is snoring softly, boots still on. Your brother is curled like a squirrel beside the fire, hugging the painted rock. Your sister coughs once, then again, then not for a long while. You slip off the straw bed and shuffle over quietly. You kneel beside her and press your hand to her forehead. She's still warm, but not burning. Her breath is shallow, but steady. You sit there for a long time, just watching. You whisper a prayer. Not a fancy one, just something soft and clumsy. Something about please let her stay, please let this pass, please. Historians sometimes downplay peasant medicine as superstition, but from where you're sitting, superstition is just hope in a different language. By dawn, she's still breathing. You exhale like you've been holding it for days. You help your mother stir the fire. You warm the water. You crush more herbs. You don't ask if she's getting better. You don't say fever. You don't say death. You just say, she slept. And your mother nods like that means everything. Because in winter, sometimes it does. You wake to the sound of muttering. Not your brother's nonsense sleep talk, not your father swearing at a frozen boot, but something older, quieter, rhythmic. It's the neighbour again, old Alice. She's crouched near your sister, chanting under her breath, palms pressed together, eyes closed. The firelight flickers on her weathered face, dancing in the lines like it's trying to read her wrinkles for wisdom. She smells like pine pitch and burnt rosemary. Your mother stands nearby, watching, hands knotted at her waist. No one speaks, not even the baby, who's oddly still this morning, blinking up at the ceiling as if trying to understand the grown-up tension in the room. Old Alice finishes the chant, presses a kiss to your sister's forehead, and then reaches into her pouch again. Out comes a small pot of something grey and sticky. She dabs it on her fingers and begins rubbing it into your sister's chest. It smells like goose fat, mint, and something slightly peppery, like mustard seeds left too long in the sun. Your sister flinches at first, but then sighs and leans back. You wrinkle your nose. What is that? Old Alice gives you a side eye. Medicine. Which of course explains nothing. Historians still debate the effectiveness of medieval folk remedies. Some were surprisingly useful. Mustard poultices, garlic compresses, dried sage steam. Others, slightly less grounded in science, like burying a potato under the bed to draw out illness, or hanging a dead toad around your neck for courage. Spoiler, it rarely helped. But Alice knows her stuff, or at least believes she does. And honestly, belief goes a long way when there's not a doctor for 30 miles and your only alternative is wait and see what dies. She wraps your sister in a warm linen cloth, tucks a sprig of thyme into the folds, and instructs your mother to boil water 3 times a day with willow bark. She'll sweat it out, Alice says. Or she won't. Comforting. Then she turns to you. You, get me the salt. You blink. We barely have any. She points. No room for argument. You dig around the cupboard and find the little cloth pouch. Just a few coarse grains clinging to the bottom like survivors on a shipwreck. You hand it over. She takes a pinch and tosses it into the fire. A crackle, a pop, a hiss like a snake with opinions. Your father raises an eyebrow. Was that necessary? Alice doesn't answer, just gathers her things and goes, like a magician after a disappearing act. That night, your sister sleeps more deeply. Her cheeks are still flushed, but her breath is steady. No coughing fits, no murmurs, just sleep. You take it as a good sign. You sit near her with a cloth in your hand, dabbing her forehead every so often. Your mother rests her eyes. Your brother plays quietly with a piece of string. Your father fixes the broken stool, probably out of nerves more than need. Then, there's a knock. Not a ghostly one this time, just a neighbour dropping by to check in. He brings a gift, dried rose hips in a little bag. For tea, he says, supposed to help with the chills. You thank him like he's handed you gold. In winter, maybe he has. Fringe tidbit. Some villagers believed healing depended on timing, treating a fever at sunrise, applying salves only when the moon was full, or whispering prayers exactly 33 times. You've never counted your prayers, but tonight you say a few extra just in case. Later, your mother makes the tea. Rosehip, thyme, and the tiniest drizzle of goat's milk. Your sister drinks it, eyes still half shut. She doesn't cough. You all exhale at once. There's laughter at dinner, just a little. Your father tells a joke about a chicken and a bishop. It doesn't make sense, but you laugh anyway. Your brother pretends the spoon is a knight. You tell him to stop jousting the porridge. He ignores you, as usual. Your mother eats with a quiet smile, the kind she saves for nights when things might be turning. And they are. You feel it. Even if your sister's still pale, even if her blanket smells like vinegar and sadness, even if your nerves are still tight enough to pluck like a lute string, you feel something shifting. You sleep better that night. The fire crackles softly. No coughs, no chanting, just the creak of the roof beams and the occasional mumble from your brother, who now insists the spoon has a name. It does not, but you let him believe. Historians still argue whether these small rituals, salves, chants, bundled herbs, made any real difference. Maybe not, but in the dark heart of winter, when sickness creeps through the cracks and cold presses down like a stone, even a placebo is a miracle. And sometimes, miracles are real, even if they smell like goose fat. The shovel breaks on the first try. Not because you hit a rock, not because you're particularly strong, but because the shovel you're using is actually an old plank of wood with a handle someone nailed on last spring after the original snapped in half during a pig-chasing incident. You stare at the jagged edge in your hand, snow falling softly on your eyebrows, and sigh the sigh of someone who knew this would happen. Snowdrifts have trapped the village again. Not dramatically, not with screams or wolves, just quietly, like a tired blanket thrown over everything. It's up past the bottom of the door now, pressed against the wood like it's trying to listen in. You can't get out unless you dig. So naturally the digging begins. You grab another plank from behind the shed. It's technically part of an old fence, and technically not a shovel, but you don't have the luxury of caring about technicalities. You jam it into the snow and start scooping. Each scoop is heavy, wet, reluctant. Snow that falls in November is powder. Snow in January is stubborn. It sticks together, holds tight, freezes to itself and to you, and dares you to move it. Your brother joins in with a pot lid, not helpful but enthusiastic. Your sister sits on a stool just inside the doorway, still pale but feeling better, shouting helpful encouragements like, "You missed a spot," and "You're going to die out there." You consider throwing a snowball at her, but your hands are too numb. Historians still argue whether medieval peasants had any actual tools dedicated to snow. Most agree they didn't, not because snow wasn't a problem, but because there was no time to invent winter-specific gadgets when survival already required 23 hours of the day. Instead, people got creative. Planks, firewood, pitchforks wrapped in cloth. One man in the next village tied a spade to a goat and let it walk in circles. It didn't work, but the goat had a good time. Today, the snow is knee-deep and still falling. You dig a little path from the door to the well, one plank width at a time. Then you try to extend it to the woodshed. Halfway there, you collapse on your back, panting. The sky spits snowflakes straight into your eyes. From this angle, the world looks peaceful, silent, pretty, even, like someone painted the ground with milk and forgot to clean the edges. You let your arms rest at your sides, plank still in hand, and pretend you're a log. Your brother pokes you. Are you dead? You grunt. He nods and starts burying your legs in more snow. Eventually you get up and finish the path. It's wobbly, lopsided, uneven, but walkable. You limp back inside, boots soaked, hands burning as they thaw. The house feels warmer now, not because it actually is, but because you've just spent an hour in what might as well have been the Arctic. Your mother hands you a cup of something hot. It's mostly water, maybe some onion skin, but you clutch it like it's priceless. Your father is reinforcing the door frame with an old beam. Last year, a snowdrift blew it open in the middle of the night. You remember waking to the sound of wind shrieking like a banshee and snow blowing over your face. You'd rather not repeat the experience. Your sister, emboldened by her slow recovery, decides she's now the Snow Queen and insists on building a throne near the hearth out of firewood and spare rags. You let her. She looks ridiculous, but happy. Fringe tidbit. Some records mention peasants digging tunnels through snow to get between buildings, especially in long winters. You've never done it, but you're tempted. The idea of a secret snow tunnel is oddly appealing, until you remember you have no shovel, and also no spare energy. Later, your cousin stops by, climbing in through the window because his door is buried. He looks like a snowman with a personality problem. He shakes the snow off like a dog and plops by the fire. "Lovely weather," he says, deadpan. Your mother smacks him with a dishcloth. He brings news. Someone's shed collapsed under the snow weight. No one hurt, but the pig is now very confused. You make a mental note to check your roof tomorrow. That night, your father strings ropes across the ceiling beams. If the snow keeps piling, you'll need to tie up the roof with extra support. It feels like preparing for battle against something that doesn't even notice you. You sit by the fire, legs still cold, socks steaming. You watch the candle flicker and listen to the wind. It's gentler now, brushing against the walls instead of clawing. Your mother starts darning another hole in her tunic. Your sister leans her head against your arm and dozes. Your brother asks if snow ever gets tired of falling. You don't know how to answer that. You go to bed thinking about snow tunnels and shovels made of dreams, and whether summer is just a myth peasants tell each other while digging through ice with cookware. You fall asleep with frozen boots beside the bed, and dreams full of endless white. But hey, at least the path to the well is clear. For now. You know it's bad when the rats start leaving. Not just scurrying, not just hiding, but leaving. One by one, they vanish. The scratching in the walls has stopped. No little eyes glinting in corners. No tiny footprints near the cupboard. It's almost too quiet. That's when it starts. The whispers about this winter. The worst one. The one everyone will remember. Or, more accurately, the one not everyone will survive. It's 13:15 and everything is sideways. The harvest was poor. Wet fields, rotted grain, blight on the barley. Summer came with more rain than sun, and the ground never dried. Wheat sprouted late, then drowned. The hay never cured. You stored what you could. Everyone did. But now, in the bitter gut of winter, the shelves are bare. What's left? A few shriveled roots, some dried peas, a single turnip. Your mother hides it like treasure. You'd laugh if it weren't so miserable. The Great Famine, they'll call it later. But right now it's just hunger. In your mouth, in your bones, in the long spaces between meals. Historians agree that from 1315 to 1317, catastrophic weather led to widespread food shortages across Europe. Crops failed, animals died, people did too. It wasn't dramatic, it was slow, quiet, a gradual erosion of options. You don't know the word famine, but you do know what it feels like to open the cupboard and see only a cobweb twitching in the breeze. You go without breakfast today, so does everyone else. Lunch is a cup of hot water with a sprinkle of barley at the bottom. You drink it slowly, letting your tongue believe there's more. Dinner? That's the miracle. Your uncle, scrappy and half-willed, manages to barter 3 eggs for 1 sad, warty turnip. You swear it's the ugliest vegetable you've ever seen, misshapen, hairy, and somehow judgmental. But it's food. You help your mother slice it thin, mix it with the last of the salt, and boil it into something vaguely stew-like. You eat in silence. Everyone does. Not because of reverence, but because chewing takes energy. Your younger brother asks for seconds. There are none. Fringe accounts suggest some families resorted to bark, nettles, even moss. Others cooked leather shoes until they softened. You try not to think about it, but when your father quietly asks if that old saddle is still in the shed, your stomach turns. The animals are suffering too. The goat's milk has gone thin and bitter. The chickens barely peck anymore. The only pig left in the village collapsed last week. Everyone pretended not to. You remember when people used to joke about tough winters? Now, no one jokes. Instead, they talk about the monastery. Rumour says they've got grain, that they're handing out bread and broth to the desperate. The walk is long and the snow deep, but your cousin says he's going. Your father tells him he's mad. Your mother gives him an extra mitten. That night, your cousin doesn't come back. No one says anything. The wind howls against the walls like it's trying to crawl in. You huddle by the fire, a candle burning low. The flame flickers wildly, casting giant shadows of small people on the walls. Your stomach growls. It's loud enough that your brother gives you a look. You both laugh, quiet, breathless laughter. If you can still laugh, you figure, you're not completely broken. Historians still argue whether cannibalism occurred during the Great Famine. Some reports say yes, others say that's just gossip. You'd like to believe it's not true, but when your neighbour looks at your goat like she's wondering how long it would take to stew the bones, you start to wonder too. Tonight, your dreams are strange. You dream of food, not just eating, but chasing it. You're running through the woods after a loaf of bread on legs. It's screaming. You wake up hungry and confused. Your sister cries in her sleep. You hold her close. Your father doesn't speak much anymore. He just watches the fire and grips his belt tighter. You notice his cheekbones more. His hands look thinner. His shoulders slump in a way they didn't last month. The snow keeps falling. Your mother crushes dried nettles and stirs them into water. Soup, she says. It tastes like grass, but you drink it anyway. Your aunt visits. She brings a blanket. She says it's all she has left to trade. Your mother offers half a loaf of bread in return. Your aunt cries. Fringe titbit. Some peasants tie belts tighter to trick their stomachs into thinking they'd eaten. Your brother does this now. You try it. It works for 10 minutes. You hear a baby crying in the next house, then not crying, then nothing. You don't ask. Instead, you stand by the door, open it just a crack, and look out. The snow is so deep now it's like the world is drowning in silence. No birds, no voices, just white. You close the door, slide the bolt, and lean your head against the frame. You still have a turnip root. You still have your family. You still have fire. It's not enough. But it's something. And right now, something is everything. The snow has stopped falling, which should feel like relief. But instead, it feels strange, suspicious even, like the sky is holding its breath, waiting to drop something worse. The stillness is eerie. No crunch of boots outside, no clatter of wood, no chickens making their usual winter complaints. It's the end of January, you think. It's hard to keep track now. The days blur together like candle wax on stone. Warm for a second, then gone. But today is different. Today your mother pulls out the good cloth, the one with fewer holes. She smooths it over the table and lights 2 candles instead of 1. And then she smiles. Barely, but it's real. Because today is a feast day. You're not sure which saint it's for. Maybe St. Bridget, maybe St. Julian, maybe St. Wire. We, still alive. But that doesn't matter. What matters is the bread on the table. Bread. Real bread. Flat. Hard. A little sour. But bread. Your mother made it with barley flour, dried berries, and the last smear of rendered lard. You watched her knead it by the fire, arms trembling, lips moving as if she were praying with every fold. She saved it for this. For now. For one brief hour when the house might feel like a home again, and not a waiting room for misery. Your father brings in an onion he's been hiding. You try not to laugh, but it's so ridiculous celebrating an onion like it's a jewel. But here you are. He slices it thin, lays it across the top of the bread like decoration, and nods with the solemn pride of a man presenting a royal banquet. Your sister claps. She's feeling better, though she's lost weight. Her hands are thinner, her cheeks hollow, but her eyes are brighter today. That's all anyone notices. That's all anyone dares to notice. The table is set. There's water in the cups, a pinch of dried thyme in the soup, and your brother has even combed his hair. It still sticks up like a haystack, but it's the effort that counts. You all sit. Your mother says grace, voice soft and steady. The fire crackles politely in the background. You keep your eyes closed longer than necessary, because it feels good to pretend the world is kind, even just for a breath. Then you eat. Slowly, carefully, as if chewing too fast might wake the famine again. The bread is rough, the onion sharp, the soup thin. But together, they taste like a feast. You don't speak much during the meal. No one does. It's not silence of sadness, it's reverence. You've all gone so long on scraps and broth and boiled regret that this feels like abundance. Historians often write about medieval feast days with a focus on nobles, boar roasts, honey cakes, jugs of wine. But for peasants, a feast wasn't about gluttony. It was about relief, a few mouthfuls of better, a moment of not hunger. Fringe fact, in some villages people saved one egg all winter just for Candlemas. Others hoarded raisins. A girl in the next cottage over saved a lump of sugar in cloth for 3 months before licking it once and declaring herself a queen. After dinner, your mother starts humming. Your father even smiles, an actual one that pulls at the corners of his beard and makes his eyes crinkle. Your brother taps a spoon on a bowl like a drum. It's barely a rhythm, but your sister starts clapping along. Your cousin arrives later, cheeks red from the cold, arms full of sticks and a grin. He heard there was soup, he says. Your mother smacks him with a dish rag and gives him the last crust. Then the singing starts. Not perfectly, not in tune, not all at once, but slowly, one by one, voices join in. Songs you've known since childhood, verses that don't make sense, chants half in Latin, half in laughter. You close your eyes and lean back against the wall, the warmth of the fire pressing against your feet. For a moment you forget the hunger, you forget the snow, you forget that you haven't bathed since before Advent. You just listen. Your father sings louder than he should. Your brother makes up words. Your sister falls asleep halfway through a verse. The baby chews on the drum spoon like it's the highlight of her week. Later, as the candles burn low, you help clear the table. Every crumb is saved. Every smear of broth licked clean. You stand by the fire, staring into the embers, and think, this is what wealth feels like. A warm room. A crust of bread. A song in the dark. Historians still argue whether peasants found joy in their lives, or just scraps of relief between the misery. You're not a historian, but tonight, you think they did. Not because everything was easy, but because moments like this made the rest bearable. You sleep deeply that night, with a full belly, a humming heart, and the aftertaste of onion still on your tongue. The cow's breath fogs the air like a dragon's. You stand in the threshold of the shed, one hand on the wooden frame, the other clutching the cold tin pail. The cow blinks at you. You blink at the cow. She looks unimpressed. You are equally unenthusiastic. It's still dark outside, still freezing, still January. Or maybe February. No one's quite sure anymore. The sun seems to have taken a vacation. The stars are dull. Even the moon looks tired. But the cow is awake, and so are you. And she, bless her flat, blank expression, is the reason you're still eating. You crouch beside her and press your forehead lightly against her flank. She's warm. She smells like hay and old rain and something slightly sour. You can hear her stomach gurgling, which is either comforting or ominous. You start to milk her. Squeeze, release. Squeeze, release. A rhythm, soft and familiar. The sound of milk hitting metal is, honestly, the best music you've heard in weeks. The pail's not full. It never is, but it's something. And in winter, something is everything. Historians agree that a single cow could mean the difference between survival and starvation for a peasant family. Milk for drinking, milk for making butter or cheese, milk to mix into soup when everything else is grey and lifeless. A cow wasn't just an animal, it was a miracle with hooves. Yours is named Bruna, short for Brunhilde, because she's large, stubborn, and only listens when she feels like it. Your sister once tried to braid her tail. Your father still has the bruise. You finish milking and stand up slowly, your back popping like a bag of damp firewood. The cold stings your nose. Your fingers are already red. The pail sloshes gently in your hand as you head back to the cottage, steam rising from it like a spell. Inside, the fire is already lit. Your mother nods when she sees the milk. She pours a little into a pot with dried herbs and a sliver of onion. She calls it milk broth. It's thin and strange, but comforting. You sip it from a wooden cup, holding it in both hands. It's warm, richer than anything you've had in days. Your brother begs for a second cup. Your mother swats him gently. Leave some for the baby, he pouts. You drink slower, savouring every taste. Fringe tidbit. Some villagers believed cows had to be thanked daily in winter to keep them from withholding milk. Your grandmother used to whisper blessings over Bruna's ears. You once saw her apologize to the cow after stepping on her shadow. Just in case. Later you help your father clean out the cow's stool. The straw is damp and frozen in places. You shovel it aside and spread new bedding. Bruna watches you with the disinterested gaze of royalty-tolerating peasants. Without her, your father says, we'd be boiling belt leather. You nod. You know. This winter has taken a lot from meat, bread, strength, but Bruna still gives. Not much, but enough. Enough to keep the baby healthy, enough to stretch the stew, enough to make a few clumps of sour cheese that your sister insists taste like joy and foot. Once your cousin offered to trade a sack of oats for her. A sack full. You all said no so fast he backed away like you'd threatened him. Your mother still talks to Bruna sometimes. Not in a silly way, but seriously, quietly, like she's praying to her. That evening, you make cheese. Sort of. You heat a bit of milk near the fire, stir in sour root and herbs, then strain it through a cloth until it becomes a lump of soft white hope. You serve it on a crust of toasted bread. Your father bites in, eyes wide. Tastes like summer, he says. Everyone laughs. You kind of want to cry. Your sister makes up a song about Bruna. It's terrible. The rhymes are nonsense. The melody is just the babies crying in reverse. But you all sing along. Because why not? The cow listens from the shed, chewing slowly, unimpressed. Historians still argue about the role of dairy in medieval peasant diets. Some say it was essential. Others say it was a luxury reserved for when the cow was in the mood. You say it's salvation in a bucket. At bedtime, you check the shed once more. Bruna blinks at you in the dark, swats her tail, and shifts in her straw. You whisper thanks, just in case the old superstitions are true. Then you close the door, latch it against the wind, and step back into your quiet, smoky cottage. The candle's already out. The fire's glowing low. Everyone's asleep. You crawl into bed, cheeks still warm from milk and laughter. Tomorrow you'll milk her again. Tomorrow she'll give. Tomorrow you'll be okay. Because right now, your cow is the MVP. You wake to the sound of dripping. Not from the ceiling, not this time, thank the saints, but outside, soft and steady. You sit up slowly, blinking sleep from your eyes, heart thumping just a little faster than it should, because dripping means melting. You shove aside the blanket, step carefully over your brother's tangle of limbs, and unlatch the door. It creaks open like it hasn't moved in a century. Cold air spills in. but not the sharp bite you've grown used to. This is different. Softer. Damper. Curious. Outside, the world is still white, but the edges are changing. Snow clumps have loosened. The hard crust that once covered everything is beginning to sag. A few icicles hang from the eaves, like stalactites made of sugar. And one of them, miracle of miracles, is dripping. You watch it fall. Drop. Pause. Drop. You whisper, "Spring." Your sister appears behind you, rubbing her eyes. Is it real? You nod. Maybe. She blinks. Should we tell Bruna? You laugh. Let her sleep. She's earned it. Back inside, your mother is already moving faster than she has in weeks. She throws open the shutters, brushes dust from the table, and starts mumbling about cleaning. This is how you know it's real. She's invoking the season of scrubbing things. Your father tests the door hinges and starts muttering about the roof. Again. The same roof he's been promising to fix since Micromass. But this time, he seems determined. He even fetches the hammer. The real one. You step outside again later with your brother, this time armed with sticks and a hopeful attitude. The two of you stomp a path to the woodshed, slipping a little, laughing a little more. The snow's not gone, but it's giving up. And that's something. Historians still argue whether peasants viewed the end of winter with relief or dread. Sure, the days got warmer, but spring meant planting, work, long days, mud, bugs, responsibility. But standing here in your damp boots, listening to meltwater trickle down the gutter like a tiny song, you don't care. You'd welcome the mud, you'd welcome the bugs, for crying out loud. Anything's better than the cold silence of January. You walk further past the shed, past the well, past the frozen compost heap that's finally starting to stink again, and you see it. A patch of brown. Bare earth. No snow, no frost, just soil. Damp, dark, a little angry-looking but visible. You kneel beside it and press your hand to it. It's cold, yes, but not frozen. You poke a finger in, just a little. It moves. You shout, "The ground is back." Your brother runs over and dramatically collapses onto it like he's found paradise. Then he immediately regrets it. Wet sleeves, frozen knees, but the moment is already golden. That night, you eat soup that somehow tastes better. It's the same as always, barley, onion, sadness. But your mother adds a dried apple slice to the pot, and suddenly it feels like a banquet. Even the fire crackles differently. Warmer, brighter, less like survival, more like comfort. Fringe facts. Some peasants used snowmelt to wash linens in early spring, considering it blessed water. Your mother just calls it finally useful. She sends you to collect 2 buckets and sets them by the hearth to thaw fully. Later, she'll use it to scrub the table. And your brother's socks. You don't stop her. Your father, energized by the return of the sun, ventures onto the roof with a hammer and some questionable confidence. You all place bets on whether he'll fix it or fall through it. He does neither. He just sits for a while, basking like a lizard. You waves, he waves back. Your sister puts a flower in Bruna's ear. Bruna eats it. The snow is still everywhere, but you can hear the change now. The creak of ice loosening, the quiet drips from trees, the buzz of something not quite an insect, but maybe a bird. Could it be? You can't see it, but you feel it. Later, while fetching water, you see a beetle crawling across a sunlit patch of wall. It looks confused. So are you. But neither of you stops moving. You lie down that night with your arms wrapped behind your head, watching shadows flicker on the ceiling. You imagine green fields, warm rain, a berry, just one. Your sister's already asleep, dreaming of flowers that don't exist yet. Your brother's still humming a song about the mud being magic. Your father snores. Your mother sighs contentedly. And you? And dream of warm soil, of walking barefoot, of sun on your face, not fire, of food that grows, not just lasts. The thaw has begun. It's not spring yet, but it's coming. You hear birdsong? At first you think you imagined it, just a dream melting into the half-awake fog, but then you hear it again, one crisp, warbling note that slices through the morning silence like a blade made of sunlight. You sit up so fast your straw mattress protests with a loud crack. Your sister groans, pulling the blanket over her head. Your brother mutters something about cheese in his sleep. You ignore them. You crawl to the window, press your nose to the oiled parchment, and hold your breath. There, perched on a sagging branch above the woodshed, a bird. Small, fluffy, brown. Possibly the most ordinary bird you've ever seen. But right now it's beautiful. It's not a crow. It's not silent. And it's singing. Spring. It hasn't arrived fully, not yet. But it's stepping through the door, one toe at a time. You open the door and step outside barefoot, just to prove a point. The ground is cold, wet, sticky. You regret the decision immediately, but you don't stop. You walk across the half-thawed mud, past slush piles and bits of ice clinging to the shadowed corners. The sky is blue, not greyish-brown, not blue if you squint, just blue. A breeze lifts your cloak. It doesn't bite your face. It brushes it. Inside, your mother is already humming. She's grinding grain. You know there's not much left, but she's making breakfast like it matters. The sun spills through the window like gold, catching her hair and turning it younger for a moment. Your father steps inside with a grin, boots muddy. He says, "The stream's moving again." Then he says nothing else. Because what else do you need to say? Historians agree that surviving a medieval winter wasn't just about food or warmth. It was a quiet rebellion against nature, against odds, against the slow, dragging weight of hopelessness. To emerge from it not just breathing, but still laughing. That's defiance. You laugh a lot today. Your sister finds a tiny green sprout under the compost heap. It's probably a weed. She insists it's lettuce. You let her have the moment. Your brother builds a dam in the stream with sticks and frozen bread crusts. You don't ask why. Bruna kicks over her bucket, stares at you like it was your fault, and gives a full pail of milk an hour later. You name her St. Bruna the Provider and tell your mother she should be canonized. Your mother throws a rag at your head. That night the soup tastes richer. The fire crackles in rhythm with your laughter. Someone starts singing. You join in. The words are nonsense. The melody's stolen from somewhere, and halfway through the verse, you forget it entirely. But no one stops. You sleep with the window open just a crack. Cold air drifts in, but it smells like dirt, like water, like life. And for the first time in what feels like forever, you dream of something other than snow. You dream of bees, of grass under your bare feet, of bread baking, steaming fresh from the hearth. You've survived. And not just by accident, not because the wolves forgot you or the wind lost your name, but because you fought every single day, with cracked hands and muddy boots and a belly that never felt quite full. You made it. Your family made it. Tomorrow the planting begins. Tomorrow you'll break the thawed earth with tools older than you are. You'll drop seeds into the soil like promises. You'll get sunburned. You'll curse blisters. You'll wait again. But tonight you rest. Because you did the impossible. You survived another medieval winter. You're hungry. You're itchy. You probably smell like smoke and soup. But you're alive. And that, in this world, is everything. The snow melts slow. The light lingers longer. The air no longer threatens, it teases. You lie beneath your woolen blanket, no longer buried, just covered, just held. The room is still smoky, still quiet, but the silence no longer aches. It breathes. Outside, the last icicles weep in slow rhythm. A single drip, a pause, another. The house creaks, not from strain, but from memory. It has held you through the cold, through the hunger, through the coughing, through the scratching, through the nothingness. And now it rests with you. Your breath is steady. The fire has faded to a soft orange pulse. You don't need it as much tonight. Your dreams come gently now, not as escape, but as gift. Soft fields, blue skies, and a distant bell ringing for supper. Warm milk and warm bread and hands that don't shake when you lift the bowl. You see faces, the ones who stayed, the ones who didn't. You carry them forward in the rhythm of your chores, in the shape of your songs, in the way you tuck the youngest in first. The seasons will turn, they always do. The frost will return, it always does. But next time, you'll be ready. You always are. Close your eyes. Let the warmth remain. Let the soil thaw. You've done enough. Rest. You're safe now. You made it. Spring is coming. The story ends here. Close your eyes. Drift deep. Sweet dreams.